And we are live. Hi, everybody. Michael here. Welcome into this live stream where I'm going to be going over small business loans, just recapping some things that are happening in the news in terms of the SBA, PPP grants, and all other types of small business funding. This is my first time going live, and I'm not a big video person, so please stick with me. I know it'll get better. But what is going on? That's what I want to ask you guys. How are you doing? How's your small business? How is it looking now? What can you see the future outlook? Where are you stuck currently? These are things I want to know. Give me a hi. Let me know you're in this stream. Again, this is my first time if you're just joining, going live. And I'm going to be covering over some small business loan news, going over some FAQs at the end of this. If you need any help, I'll be here to answer them for you. But I'm going to try to do this. I'll try to aim for every Thursday, once a week. Try to do a live video. I've been doing this kind of thing on like YouTube. If you've seen any of my YouTube videos about small business loans, opportunities, programs for startups and non-startups, all that is released there. But I do spend the majority of my time on my blog, and that's what I like to do. I'm a writer first. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can always follow the blog at Viral Home Based Pursuits, as well as Get Fast Business Loans is another solution. Yeah, so let me know if you guys can wave or give me a hi. I don't know if I can see people commenting here. I don't know exactly how TikTok Live works. I did a little research, but I'm still unsure a little bit about how to use. Maybe it says swipe to change filter. I'm not big on the whole maybe I have a bigger following now, but the whole social media thing too. But yeah, in just a second here I'll be going in and then just uncovering on topic of the SBA, and then I'll transition into a PPP loan and then kind of go into the grants, and then from there on just kind of give you an outlook of what you have in terms of small business funding and those options. Okay, so one thing that I do want to cover that is SBA related material, it is what is going on right now. So as of recently, we have the Senate who is fighting to approve some kind of spending fee. There's a bill going on around it where they have to come to an agreement with how they want to spend their money and allocate it for the SBA and for other types of loans like eidls, disaster loans. And then you have the House who is trying to come into an agreement with the rising of debt. What is that debt ceiling going to look like? So there's this Senate and then the House who are trying to come together and figure out a one, spending fee, and then two, what is going to be the debt ceiling going to look like. And there's so much of an approval process that has to go through it. And the government can shut down in as little as 30 hours. And we're looking at Thursday today. And they could be shutting down the government in terms of allocating SBA funding and anything else in the future if they can't come to that agreement. If they do as soon as Wednesday, that can be removed. But the Senate has to come to an agreement with their spending bill. And if that doesn't happen, I'm not sure. Somebody's commenting here, unrelated to the stream, but that's what's happening with the Senate. And then you have the House, who is trying to put together this debt ceiling ratio, just understanding, kind of like what's going on with the stimulus. Should you be given one or not? What's the debt ceiling going to look like? What is our spending fee going to be like? And so that's similar of a process with the Senate and the House, and then that's going to get approved and going to go order by order up into a higher ceiling. And so if that does not get approved, then you are looking at longer wait times. You are looking at a COVID break where, hey guys, so what you're looking at, if this doesn't get approved, if the Senate can't come to an agreement with how they use their spending, in the House of Representatives, they cannot figure out their debt ceiling, then it's going to hold you guys back. Those of you who are already in the SBA process, having gone their funding, it comes up with more complications on the IRS part, and they have to withhold those applications going through because it comes up with more complications on the IRS part, and they have to withhold those applications going through because it's part of those of you who are seeking SBA funding, 7A, 504, eidl, things like the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which is all completely opened, along with more SBAs. It's not going to be processed. So you're going to have a harder time getting one approved if you're already in the process, especially for like PPP loan related, because it is all government. Those of you who are in the second, third round and still haven't gotten their funding, that's going to be delayed. Okay. And yeah, that's a problem because right now during COVID times, you need to get money for payroll. You need to pay those expenses, and you need to build, grow, expand, and even get out of that tight pinch you're in. And it's going to become a little bit more difficult for you to now if there's no agreement that comes to it. So those of you who are just joining, I'm going over some small business loan news, what's going on right now in terms of the SBA. How could that affect your fundability? And with the Senate and the House having to come to an agreement with, one, the spending fee, and then two, the House is trying to come up with the right debt ceiling ratio. And, we're in a crunch time right now. And as soon as Friday or Thursday night, if there's no agreement by Friday, the government's going to have no choice but to hold back those applications coming through. And then two, those of you who have already been in the application process, they outside robbing banks. What do you mean by that? Does that mean people who cannot get funding are seeking extensive measures to get funding, or that the banks are robbing people of not getting funded? Either way, it's true. Okay. Thank you guys for just joining this live. Again, it is my first time coming up here with SBA news. And I'm going to jump into in a moment the alternative options to SBA loans, PPP, and much more. If you cannot get access to those, I've been getting questioned so much every single day from here on this platform, and then I'll hear from you guys on Instagram and then a few other ones. But what's happening is, again, you cannot get complete access to SBA loans. It's going to become more difficult if that's what you're seeking, especially those of you who are like, I want a 7A loan. And I get why you would want that. Reason being is they are low interest, and then they give you longer terms. Those are the two attractive features of a 7A loan, and I understand that, speaking from experience. And I know what it feels like to be in your position looking for, alternative funding methods. And when it makes it difficult that you cannot just go to the banks and you cannot turn for your friends and family help anymore, and you can't reach deeper into your savings account, and then you're like, well, now I can't get a PPP loan because it's closed off, or I'm in the process of my loan forgiveness in those second and third rounds, but I'm still not getting my funding. And a big reason of that is because of what's happening right now. But before that, what's been going on is there are a lot of people who are trying to get processed. And what's happening is there are a lot of people who don't get approved because they give the wrong type of information, or they just are not it goes along with this. They are not truthful. And so in that case, they have to sift through those to get to the ones who are credible. So if you're like, I've been trying to contact this type of company, it can be with like a Womply, it could be a Blue Acorn, all these other micro lenders, through Accion and Kiva and a bunch of other ones, and you're like, what is going on here? Then the reasoning is because you have a lot of people who submitted applications that are not going to get approved, yet the people have to look through this. These lenders, these people have to go through them, and they have to view them detail per detail, and that takes up a lot of time and energy, right? So you have to think about that. And also, if you can leave me a comment, let me know what you're struggling with at the moment, if that's even possible, so I can come back here and in time, comment and give you a helping hand. I want to help as many small business owners as I can. You guys are at the forefront of stimulating the economy, and that's what our future outlook is right now, especially in unprecedented moments like COVID, some parts of the economic downfall that's going on. You have more of a supply, less of a demand for things. You're seeing that all around with retailers in brick and mortar businesses, even in online, as so many people are transitioning to that. You're getting more supply, less of a demand. It's just an economic thing. And so that's part of what's been going on with the SBA. I'm just looking at my monitor right now because I have a few things opened up on my browser. Not what we were just talking about, but a few other details just to make sure I'm following my pointers so I know I'm covering the details that I wanted to go through. Yeah, so I pretty much covered that. And then the COVID eidl, that's a point I wanted to go over. So eidl, disaster loans, that's another option you can get into. It's very common these days because most people can't get an SBA 7A or a 504, so they turn to an eidl. And if you're looking for grants, that's another alternative option to go into. So it's always been like, you can't get a PPP loan. Well, let's see, SBA 7As or SBA 504s, as well as a bunch of other ones. And then if we can't get that, we'll get into the SBA eidls. And then from there on out, we start moving into more of like grants, crowdfunding, other micro lending solutions, personal credit loans. You can get business credit, try to max out a card, and then be able to pay off that in monthly terms. Hey guys. I'm just reading some of the comments here. If you're just joining, we're talking all small business news. We'll be doing a quick Q&A. If you guys have any, I'll answer them. I'll come up with a few questions that have been asked to me. But you can continue to follow my channel here. If you haven't already subscribed and you're not following, make sure to do that. I've just released a video earlier on what can you do if you can't use a PPP to pay off expenses, payroll, other things you have. There's an alternative option, so you're going to want to go in there and watch that video. And also, if you need fast help, like I'm doing for many every single day here, make sure you go into the bio and you pick up my free 6-step pre-approval lending checklist. If I can't get to you right away, I know you're commenting, we're talking in chat privately, I'm understanding your situation. And if I can't get to you right away, if we're in between conversation and you see that I can't get to you in that moment, make sure to look in the bio and pick up that free alternative lending checklist. It'll serve you very well. It goes by step to show you the 6+ steps plus a lot of bonus content on what you should do before you walk in and start your application or your next one, so you don't get disapproved. Your higher chances of getting approved are there, right? So that's very valuable. And now we're going to kind of go into the alternative options. But before I do, have faith. Have a sip of faith, okay? Because everything is going to work out. If you're feeling right now like you are left in the unknown, like many small business owners are, you're thinking, well, what do I do? What's my next move? How do I go from here, where I'm not feeling comfortable with what I can get, to the other side where the results are going to pay off in my business? So you have over here where you cannot focus on getting the right type of lending, but then over here are your results. And so don't feel that way. I had tea in this. There's like a few drops in there now. And then we're just hanging out here in an alternative room of mine. I just got my papers laid out, my calendar, just a couple of notes back there, and then you see the, I don't know if I can flip the screen on this. Let's see if I can do that. Oh yeah, I can flip the camera, can't say. So here you see what's been happening and a few details. Let me see if I can come up with this screen for you guys, so you can see here. So a lot of you have already come to this page, something more or less like this, but you can pick up this free 6-step pre-approval checklist as I was talking about. And it'll ask a question, likely, maybe it'll look like this, maybe it'll change, but startup, if you're a non-startup, and then it'll take you down to where you can pick this free checklist up. That's already helping out many people, and I'm going to be there every step of the way for you guys to help you with your specific needs. But I'm just, again, hanging out here. Let me flip this camera. I don't know what this whole gift thing is. Okay. We'll leave that alone. Let me drop a comment here. Just letting everybody know, thank you for tuning in. Now, okay, what are our small business alternative lending solutions? Okay, that's what you want to know. Let me see here. I'm just looking at who's been joining. Oh, thank you for joining me, and thank you for following me, Brian. I just saw that. Again, first time going live, I'll get used to this. And then we'll come up with more topics as time goes by. You guys can leave me a comment if you guys want me to cover a certain specific topic another time. Maybe I'll include it, a little brief introduction into that in this video. Or it can be anything you have questions to. I'll continue to post on this channel, on this platform, about certain how-to videos and how you guys can get the most help. But what do we have for SBA, PPP alternatives? Okay, there are many on the table. Now, that's one thing we commonly know. We've heard of things like equipment financing, customer financing, payment processing, and there's so many different more that go underneath those categories, like refinancing and a lot more. But what are the exact small business loans that you can get? And I know I was asked just early, and I'm going to try to make a video for that answering the question, but how do we know what the lenders are looking for our specific type of an industry? And that's a very great question. So first of all, before you even start an application, you have to know the platform. So you have to know, okay, if I go, and I'm not going to name any, if I go to X, what are their details? Who do they serve? If a specific company serves all, they might have a mix of different lenders for different industries. That's usually common, what you see. But if there's a company here that specifically, let's say, works for trucking, okay, they're all trucking needs, all different types of transportation. So what's going to happen? You're going to get paired with a lender that's going to meet your needs, highly likely to. And if not, there's a little bit of flexibility, and that's what most lenders will do. If you want a certain thing, a certain amount of capital, maybe you have collateral to give up for a certain amount of it, of a different asset that you want with equipment, or if you have higher credit and you're going for those business lines of credit to use them for as working capital, you have to know the company first and foremost. 2, you want to know what lenders they provide by name. It's very useful. You don't always have to know that. But when you have that in mind and you understand what other people have gone through them, then you get a better understanding of who these lenders are and how they can help you. More or less, you'll have similar circumstances, but different qualifications. You might have lower credit than someone else. You might have higher you might have higher cash flow than another person. So those lenders will factor that in. Let's say you had higher cash flow, and they didn't pay much attention to your credit, or they did. Let's say they did. You have less credit, you have a poor one. So they're going to say, okay, we're going to give this person a medium amount of interest rate, this factor rate, this APR. And we do that because they have great cash flow, but their credit's just not there. And even though they focus on working capital, they do that. Okay, that's what can happen. Now, let's go back on topic for SBA, alternative lending options. So what do we have? We have things like, we're going to start off with startup funding because that's a very common thing most people look for. We have things like crowdfunding, and that's one of more at the bottom, but I'm going to start there and work my way up. So we have crowdfunding. There are these platforms like Kickstarter, and I'm not going to name more of them, but that's just one of the many that you can get onto and get crowdfunding, right? Set an amount, a targeted goal that you want, and you can see like day by day if you're going to meet it or not. Or you can also take that and then use other ways. So you can use crowdfunding with other startup options out there. You can go locally for your Chamber of Commerce. You can also go and get a grant, right? Grants are a very popular option these days. That's a great solution for startups. You have other things like the SBA can even help in many circumstances. Even PPPs when they're not, when they're opened. But those are just some of the many. You have other ones out there like a merchant cash advance that does appeal to certain startups. For the most part, they will require you to have a certain amount of working capital. But they have minimum requirements. Okay, so they might want you to have some time in business and some kind of cash flow, because that's a cash flow type of company and industry where they look at what are you making month to month. But they also work with startup companies, and they just take a future percentage of your credit card and debit, even receivables. So that's a startup loan to consider depending on the company you go to. And for those of you, again, who are just joining, thanks for coming in. Happy to have you guys here. There are many more startup funding solutions, but we're just gonna end it at those like 3+ for now. And there are more of them. So if you need more of those options, again, look in the bio for that free checklist, pick it up, and you won't be sorry. It's going to help you save a lot of time and energy going in and sifting through all the different platforms that you can get funded with. So there are many more, and then I'm gonna include startups with non-startups in this next segment. So other alternative solutions you have on top of a merchant cash advance, fast funding, even same day. If you want same day funding, those do have a little bit higher in interest rates depending on the company you go with, higher factor rates to consider. Shorter terms, you're looking at maybe a couple of months, 4 to 6, up to a year or so, even as much as 18 months. So you have to consider that. And then 2, you also have revenue-based funding. Now, this is one of my favorite ones for alternative SBAs, along with a merchant cash advance. So if you wanted fast funding, let's say, but you didn't want to have any kind of an interest rate, and I know how that surprisingly sounds, but the truth is there is a company out there that I'm familiar with that can help you get an alternative SBA through revenue-based funding. Again, we look at cash flow. We see what you're getting in month to month, and we more or less look at your credit scores, your FICO. You can have a bad credit score and still be approved, just showing that you have consistent monthly income, that revenue coming in with a few other requirements on board. And that's through the revenue-based funding model. And that's essentially, again, based on cash flow, lower requirements. There's no interest involved, no collateral, no hard credit pulls. We, in fact, don't even consider taking a future percentage of your credit card receivables like a traditional merchant cash advance does. That's why it's such an attractive solution. You can get these solutions with up to $25K, up to $2 million. So pretty lucrative of an option, and one of my number one recommended ways outside of a traditional MCA. So if that's something that does interest you, again, let me know, comments back, as well as look in the bio again for that free 6-step pre-approval lending checklist. Thank you for you guys for joining in, who are just coming in right now. I can see, let me see, Casey Campbell just joined. Hi, Casey. And Ken here just came in. We have Paul. As more of you are coming in, please feel free, leave me a comment. What are you currently struggling with when it comes to small business funding? Have you been denied? What's your situation like? Are you in an SBA right now in the process? Wanting to get an SBA, grants, PPP loan, what is that look like for you? What industry also? Let me know, because that will also help me point you in the right directions. So continuing into our SBA PPP alternatives on top of startup and non-startups with MCAs, and then we have RBFs, revenue-based funding, great solutions to get into. You also have business term solutions, short or long term. And these do stack on interest rates just like the merchant cash advance does. It might not be as highly as an MCA, but they are still there. There's something to consider. Those usually have a non-startup position, and you have to be making a good amount of monthly income. So it can be less than 100,000, but a lot of them go 100,000 and up. You have to have a certain amount of years in business. At the most, there isn't really an amount, but they're looking for years in, 2+. But more or less, they can be flexible in terms. So you can do things like daily, monthly, bi-weekly, weekly payments. So that's another option to get into. You have a bunch of other ones like business credit cards, taking a business line of credit, a great hybrid to just using business credit cards where you can use revolving credit to then use for working capital, equipment financing, other types of financing solutions that you need in your own business right now. Personal credit, consider that. Getting personal loans to then build that credit to then use for working capital and other solutions. Giving up collateral. Okay, if you have any assets to give up, you can do that as well. But those are just some of the many off the top of my head. I know I didn't list them all. We'd be here for a long time going into them all specifically. That's why I just wanted to cover a few with the MCAs, and then you have the revenue-based funding options available that are on the table. We went over grants, local chamber of commerce, friends and family if possible. Seek out funding that way. And there are many more like equipment financing, customer financing, and then that list just continues to vary down and down. So that is pretty much going to wrap up the whole SBA, PPP, and then the alternative options that you have on the table here. And then we're going to go right now into the Q&As. If none of you have comments, let me go ahead and look here. Okay, it doesn't look like we do have much comments here. And I think I'm doing this right. And again, it's my first time doing this live. Topics, what does this mean? Oh, I didn't know you could do this, so that might have been helpful. Let me go down this topic of section. I guess we can categorize this as learn. So I just added that here. Let me see this. What is, I don't know what mirror your video is. Okay, so just a few Q&As. Well, what I've been getting asked a lot lately is, will I be able to get funding even with bad credit? And I know that's a very common question. So my answer to that is, of course, it is possible for you to get a funded amount for having bad credit. And I think what I did here was I moved the, let me remove this. As soon as I went to learn, I could see nobody was really coming through. Let me see the comment section here. It's showing me who's coming in. Okay, so it looks like people are still coming in. Well, what do we do when you have bad credit? Okay, what are our options first? Let's start there, because you and me as a small business owner, we're thinking, what is our option with bad credit? We do go through and think, okay, what types of funding are available for us? But we first ask, can I get funding? And I just answer that with a yes. You can, absolutely. But now let's talk about what type of funding you can receive. So with the term credit and business credit, you can build that with business credit cards. The more you take in, you can max them out and build credit that way. Another way to do this is with a business line of credit. It's a hybrid. And this is where you again are building a revolving line of credit to then use for working capital, equipment financing, and other solutions out there. A very great solution to use. I highly recommend that. Can be used for some circumstances, startups and non-startups, but having a better credit is a great solution. So if you don't have great credit and you want to get a business line, you might want to start off with building better credit first and then getting into that, and then you can use that money for working capital later on. And those are some of the few methods for having bad credit. Another thing you can do, just turn to cash flow funding, right? They're the 3 C's: cash flow, collateral, credit. If you're looking for funding, working capital, you're in the cash flow stage. So if you're looking for that and you have bad funding, excuse me. Ooh, must have been my spit. But worst time that's happened. So what you can do is you can look into a merchant cash advance, and then you have revenue-based funding. So a merchant cash advance and you have revenue-based funding. So with these two solutions, you can get funded through what you're making month to month. So they can look at your credit score and say, okay, it's bad, but they primarily want to see what you're making month to month. And they can give you what's called a cash advance in return for that. So those are your solutions if you have bad credit and you want fast money. You can use a business term for short-term solutions, or you can turn to a merchant cash advance, a revenue-based funding option. Okay, because we know with SBAs and even PPPs, those take a bit. And I just explained that in the beginning why it's happening. Things with the IRS having to shut down applicants and the whole approval process and what they have going on with people not qualifying, why that's holding everybody back. But MCAs, revenue-based funding, if you need help with those two, also look in the bio, pick up that free checklist, and it'll help you understand how to get pre-approved for them. What other options do you have if you have bad credit? It can be a little bit difficult to seek out funding options outside of MCAs and revenue-based funding. I know that if you're looking for equipment, financing, and other parts, they might require higher standards. And if you cannot get those, you can just go through, again, the revenue-based funding route, the MCAs. And then what else do we do? We can work with what we have and go that way. If you have alternative means, friends and family, again, turn to them, crowdfunding, grants, solutions like that. Go for it. Now, one more Q&A that I want to go through, and then we're going to wrap up here. I was just viewing the comments. And let me see a few of them here. Less than a little bit of them. Okay, so what do I need to get approved? Or I can reframe that question as, how long will it take for me to get approved for small business funding? And that's more of a generic question, so I'm going to want to start there. I didn't want to pick a specific financing solution, but typically depends on the company and what are the requirements and what does that loan application look like. Because there is the application part, and then there's also the documents. And then 3, the background check. So maybe not all companies do background checks, but you have the application, the documents, background check. And these lenders have specific needs they want to meet. They have a criteria they go by. They routinely do it for different types of industries and they see the pattern. So if you stick out, let's say, and you have a great reason, you know why you need your funding, you know what you're going to use it for, how much do you need. On top of that, you have the right qualifications, you exceed their expectations even better. You can expect funding very fast, a turnaround. You won't have to wait hours for approval or an email. You can do a same day, depending on what company that is, as far as a day to two. And then your funding can come in as soon as same day and as much as a week. Unlike going to traditional banks where you take a while for an approval process, and then two, you can't get your funding right away. You're talking about months on end sometimes, and that can even be pushed out to close to a year. And that's typically something you see with SBA loans, and that's why this revenue-based funding and MCAs are a great solution for you guys, because you don't have to wait weeks, days, months. Okay, we're talking about 30 plus, 6+ months going on, and if you needed your funding now to pay off payroll, do things with expenses, and to grow and to add that extra patio, you can't really expect to do that, can you, right away? You'd have to wait. But if you're okay with that, you're like, in the future, I'm gonna need funding so I can do this. Okay, that's a different matter. But yeah, again, the application process, the type of company, the steps in between, the application, the documents, the background, and they want to know, like, hey, are you truthful? Don't try to start an application and you're like saying I make this much money and the bank statements don't reflect that. So that's what's on the table. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover here. Hopefully you guys are having a great Thursday afternoon, what part of the world you're in. If I'm on Pacific Standard Time. If you're on Eastern Time, I know it's getting closer to the late afternoon, coming up to the evening. Central Time, other parts, Mountain, Pacific. But we're all here again to help one another, and I'm here to help you understand your small business funding needs. And if you ever need any help, one, keep the faith, and then two, turn to me if you need anything. I'll be here to help you. With all small business funding, doesn't matter if it's working capital, cash flow, we have collateral, giving up assets. 3, we have credits, trying to build credit in what ways possible so that you can use for working capital. I'm going to be here for you every step of the way. So what am I doing? So I'm just hanging out now. Got my books up here. Was drinking tea earlier, my water, my little desk right now. And then I'm in this alternative room right now. You can see that. So what I'm going to be doing is taking a break, first and foremost, because videos, typically make me want to take a break and just recover from the time being here with you guys that I've enjoyed. But I also need that recovery time. So I'm going to go maybe do a little workout and then maybe lay in the tub for a little bit just to relax my mind. And that'll be that. So again, thank you for tuning in. For those of you who watched, appreciate you. I think it's recorded and up for 90 days or something like that. So you can always come back and watch it. Maybe I'll repost it somewhere else. And again, if you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. Also, check in the bio to pick up my free 6-step pre-approval lending checklist. It breaks down step by step specifically what you must do if you want to save time, your headaches, and all this energy, and especially money, because we know there are application fees. Check that out. Plus, there's a lot of bonus content in there that'll point you in the right direction. Okay, that's everything from me. Let me see. I'm not sure how to even end this chat. I'm not even sure how this even ends. Let me see here. Oh yeah, I think there's a little power button here. I'm going to press this power button, and I think that should be the end of it. All right, guys. Have a great Friday as well. And if you don't hear from me, a great weekend. Thank you.